Okay, Monday, December 2nd, 2019, we're going to call the meeting to order for the Streets and Transportation Committee. The first thing we're going to do is do a little roll call around the room, starting with Susan.
Yep, Susan here.
Bruce Kaufman.
John Gallagher.
Marc Nodell.
David Mann.
Donna Mabry.
All right, so we're here less Dan. And what I wanted to do was have Marc and Bruce give us a little bit of their background and thank them both, particularly Bruce, who I pursued to get on the committee.
Okay, well, I'm a property owner in Rehoboth for about 25 years. I live part-time in Virginia, the state of Virginia, and part-time at One Virginia, so I don't have to remember too much where I live. We've been coming down here with our family for a long time. We love it. And I felt like I'd like to become more active in what goes on in the city. I'm the treasurer of One Virginia Avenue. I'm also on the finance committee at my homeowners association in Virginia. So I'm used to committee work. I'm used to the politics that go on, but I'm looking forward to working with this committee.
Thank you.
And what kind of work do you do?
Well, I'm retired now, but I worked in genomics and biotech, and I also worked at the World Bank for about 25 years.
Wow.
Okay, this is good.
I'm retired, 45-year career as applied mathematician for the intelligence community back in the DC area. While there, I commuted to work by bicycle most of my time. In retirement, I'm here now 7 years, I repair bicycles and lend them to the foreign students who come here in the summer. As part of that, I teach bike safety to them. I reach a couple hundred of them every year. And through that, I've gotten involved with the Delaware Bicycle Council and have been working with them to improve safety for bicycles on the Route 1 corridor. So if you see stencils painted on the sidewalk that say slow down, look for traffic, that was me and my friends who I rounded up. So anyway, that's my focus. That's why I'm interested in this committee, is bicycling as transportation as opposed to bicycling as recreation. That's my main concern. That's it.
And you work with, from what I recall from when you spoke with us in the past, International Student Outreach Program and the
Yes,
J1 students?
and my wife, as it turns out, is the director of that program. So the church dinners, the trips to DC, all the things they do for the foreign students, that's her organization. They asked the bicycle side of it to be jettisoned because they were worried about liability. So because of that, it actually turned out to be a good thing. The state of Delaware picked up my bicycle program and gave me a budget. They buy me parts.
Wow.
They gave me an old bus repair barn at the Park and Ride by Jungle Gyms to use as a shop. However, because it's state property, I had to be a state employee. So I'm a part-time seasonal bicycle mechanic for the state of Delaware.
This is fabulous.
And as a result of that, I work, technically my boss is Anthony Alio,
That's
the bike guy.
Oh.
That is perfect.
Right. That's helpful.
And so like people want to give their bikes away now, they do it through you, through the state, they can, because I knew about your repair shop by the Park and Ride, you know, and that's where students can pick up bikes or leave them off if they need repair?
Yes, I have.
They get free bikes?
We have about 200 bikes to lend out. Now, last year we had 1,040 J1 students here, so we're only scratching the surface for what's needed. But then 3 days a week I have office hours, I call it, where I'm there. They can bring their bikes to get repaired, and it's not necessarily our bikes. It can be any bike. If they pulled a bike out from underneath their rental house, I'll work on it.
Yeah. But you have a stock of 200 bikes that
Closer to
rotate through,
300.
that you can give out to students for the summer and they
Yeah,
return? Is that
yeah.
the plan?
And of those students, how many would you say are working at businesses in the city of Rehoboth Beach?
1,040 is 100 or so in Lewis, 200 or 300 in Dewey, and then all the rest in Rehoboth.
But in the city,
So-
not out in like the outlets or anything, they're actually,
Oh, no, that's including,
that's including.
that's the outlets, yeah.
Okay.
So what was that? How many in Dewey?
200 to 300.
200 or 300.
And
I can
then-
give you the exact numbers. My wife works with the State Department directly for that kind of data.
And then Lewis was
100.
Smaller, yeah, on the order of 100.
100 and the rest in,
Right.
around the,
Oh, and then I should say, Chief Banks works with us in the safety presentation. He has a couple of officers come and puts them through a bike rodeo to make sure they know how to ride. That we give, all the bikes that we lend out have lights. We offer helmets, but we also give lights to Chief Banks's bike officers. So if, rather than give them a citation if they're riding without a light at night, they can give them a light. And if he were here, he could talk about how well that's been
Well,
going.
that's a great idea.
Right.
They just started doing that in Arlington. My wife got us lights, extra lights.
oh yeah.
We have the blinding ones.
Oh,
Now we have little ones, but it's really admirable. And I see these kids riding up and down the avenue at night. It's scary.
I know.
And given the labor situation, we need them. I feel like we need
Oh,
them here
yeah.
in the city dramatically.
Oh.
Okay, so,
but it's a shame it has to be Rehoboth Avenue. I mean, we tried to avoid that in every way we could with our map, you know.
well, we'll talk about that. in a
That's
minute,
another
but-
story.
But
Right.
John was nice enough to get the minutes typed up and get us all copies. So has everybody had a chance to kind of glance through these quickly? I only saw one mistake on State Street. I changed it to Road. And Walter, even though he's not here, we should kind of designate him as an honorary member.
Oh, Walter.
Okay, so we need to have a motion and a second on the minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the
I can
minutes.
second.
Okay, so Susan and Donna. Thank you.
One more question. Do you like the format?
I like the font because it's easy to read.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, bullet point.
Oh, we take a vote. Sorry. This is my guidance counselor.
Right?
Can we all vote that we all approve them? What does it all say?
Aye.
All of four? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so everyone approves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Correspondence? There was nothing since the last meeting?
I haven't received any.
Right, so the only one that was in the past was from Suzanne Good about stop signs at the circle. But that didn't get, all right.
Yeah, that was last year.
Is that a commissioner thing, Susan?
What?
Stop signs at the circle?
Uh,
Or is that ours?
It can be ours. I mean, I don't know, the commissioners haven't really talked about it. We talked about,
Well, when we get down to the circle, we'll address that then.
yeah, I think that's a good place to do it.
So, getting into old business, crosswalks on Rehoboth Avenue, we've learned that the tape or vinyl or whatever it's called has to be burned off.
Burned off.
Then it has to be power washed, and then it's ready to paint. So it's not simple. However, at the circle, there has been some work done,
Yes.
magically. It looks like the vinyl got put on top of the old vinyl down there. So that's the question
Well,
mark I
and
have.
it's been repainting to the
Uh,
yield sign, really bright now. I don't know if people notice it, but
Well, we learned that in addition to what's going on now, long-term, we're gonna get signs with the button and blinking lights. So they'll be far more noticeable to the average pedestrian. We also learned that
Excuse
state of
me,
Delaware,
Is it, those blinking lights, are you saying that's at the circle or just the crosswalks on Rehoboth Avenue?
No,
the
my understanding.
crosswalks on Rehoboth Avenue.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
not
that's
sure
what I
it'd be
thought,
at the
Rehoboth
circle,
Avenue, okay.
the focus was to deal with Rehoboth Avenue in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th blocks.
Right.
right.
So that takes us from 2nd Street or Bayard Avenue to the circle.
Right.
And then from the circle to the canal, I guess would be the 5.5 or 6th block. 1st Street and 2nd Street are controlled intersections. So those are down the priority list because there are traffic lights and
Yeah.
crosswalks, indicator lights. But from 2nd Street to the circle, the plan is to burn off the vinyl tape, power wash, highway grade reflective paint, and then long-term, hopefully earlier next year before the summer season, to have blinking lights with a push button. So you can go to the signpost, push the button, the lights will blink, you can cross safely. But we also learned that Delaware state law is that you have to have a foot in the street to expect the car to stop. If you're on the curb, you can't expect the car to stop. You have to step into the street, which seems a little dangerous to me.
Yeah.
But we now have a bit of a pathway to the state of Delaware here.
So these are the pedestrian, I've seen these before. You press the button and it flashes, telling the cars to stop or to slow down. I can't,
They need to stop. So
Stop,
they should be red lights. So
okay.
But these are lower red lights
Yeah.
at waist level,
I wouldn't say they're gonna be at waist level. It seems like all the signs get posted at 8 feet.
at 8 feet. But are they on the median or they're not on the?
They're on the side.
My sense was that they were gonna be on the sides.
Oh, they're not.
And that is a good question, Donna, because in a lot of jurisdictions with a median in the center of the street, there's a flashing light or a sign on both sides of the
Right.
street.
Yeah.
Right.
So we want to find out if they're going to be in the median also.
As well, right.
It seems
Then
more
you
important
need
to put it in
4.
the median than on the sides, because the sides of the streets are so cluttered, and there's,
You don't think it would resemble the ones they put on the Forgotten Mile?
I think they're going to be very similar. Keith had one page, which I've got to get him to send us so we can all
Yeah.
take a look at it. Ultimately, if the street gets repaved, there are going to be hockey pucks in the street that will flash as uplights also.
Oh,
So you'd have the lights going across the street twice, 2 stripes, plus the signs. We're fortunate that we still live in a world of near misses.
Yes.
We're still in the near miss,
Yeah.
but accidents happen, and
Well, it seems like everybody I know has had a near miss, so.
Yeah.
including me.
it's particularly awkward when you get one car to stop
Yeah.
and then the other ones.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
what,
bind.
that's what the chief says.
Right. I came up with another idea too, we hadn't talked about, to make the crosswalks look more pronounced. Like, I think on Rehoboth Avenue, part of the problem is that they are the brick pedestrian walks, they don't show up. And they just have the white lines on either side. And they don't stand out as much as like on the other streets where we have the vertical zebra-like lines that demarcate the crosswalks. I think those crosswalks are far more recognizable for both pedestrians and drivers. And I'd recommend it, like we paint on the brick and everybody, oh my God, no, we can't paint the brick. But here I came up with an alternate idea it's a blend, like on the white strips around, on either side of the brick. Well, we make that area wider, and in that area, then we do put the stripes. So maybe you just take a foot and a half on either side of the brick crosswalk, and in that area, you paint white lines, plus you also do
stripe.
the stripes in the middle.
So
And that would make it more prominent.
can you make that an internet search project just to see if it's been done somewhere so we can show somebody an example? My favorite
I
one,
don't know that I don't know if it's been done, I think,
there's some interesting stuff on the internet. My favorite one is the one from Europe that is 3D, and it makes it look like you're driving into a wall. I'll have to bring
I
it up
doubt,
and email
I
it to you guys.
can look, David, but I doubt I'll find that, but I think,
We'll find
Rehoboth,
something close.
yeah,
An
but,
idea.
It takes quite a bit of space on the pavement for all the paint to generate this 3D image.
Yeah.
So it's a bit intrusive if you're a
Yeah.
pedestrian, but it's really dramatic. A car looks like it's driving into a white wall. It's pretty impressive.
but but the.
I think we need to come up with an illustration to show exactly what,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
Good. On either side of the brick,
But-
we do a smaller area of striping.
Maybe there's a way to make the stripes more dramatic.
Yeah, and well, that's
They
what the
are-
stripes do.
They are currently, I think they're concrete, cement, that are next to the pavers. I think they're framed. I think the pavers are framed. We'll have to take a look out front, but I think they're framed. But it's pavement on either side, which means there is area to do things creatively.
But
A lot of this has been driven by the streetscape. The streetscape determined, so a lot of the issues that we're dealing with are a result of the streetscape and the radius of the curbs and no crosswalk access to the median spaces. And those are all part of the streetscape, which we're now trying to correct.
But if you look on First Street and Second Street, they don't have any concrete in the blacktop to demarcate the crosswalks. They just use paint on the blacktop, and they're very effective. And so that's what we're just talking about, painting some more white striping on the blacktop.
Just make them more noticeable,
Yeah, that's one way to do it. and
which is
maintain-
not expensive
Right,
and not all that time consuming.
right. Doesn't even have to be reflective paint.
Okay. Crosswalks on King Charles. That's one that we're now going around in a circle on and really needs to get in front of the commissioners.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna play it back. If you follow First Street across from Lake Girard, Virginia, Olive, Maryland, Baltimore, Wilmington, Delaware, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia all have crosswalks striped on both sides of the intersection, what I call double crosswalks.
Those do, huh?
Those streets all have doubles. When you get further south to Laurel and Hickman, you have one striped crosswalk. At Laurel Street, it's on the south side of the intersection. At Hickman, it's on the north side of the intersection.
Talking about Baird, not King Charles, aren't you, or what?
No,
No,
that's
we're
King Charles.
working on King Charles.
Right, Charles, I didn't think that was
We're going across King Charles from First Street and transitioning to King Charles.
There by the church, there's a
Yeah, okay,
crosswalk, and
all right.
he's right up
The
on
church,
north side.
the church also has a silent policeman at Laurel.
Yeah.
There is
that's right.
one
Silent
in the center of the
policeman.
street,
Yes.
which Chief Banks has said he's not really in favor of because it can be awkward for emergency vehicles that have to drive down the middle. And it can damage because it falls over and then runs underneath the fire truck would be the best example. So he's more in favor of those on either side of the street. But we still have Newcastle, Stockley, Norfolk, Rodney, and St. Lawrence that are all unprotected crosswalks. There are no stripes. There are ADA ramps on every corner. So it's my feeling that we have to be very direct with the commissioners and recommend that the absence of these crosswalks needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
We were told a year ago it was going to be corrected and nothing happened. And now we're approaching we've got time to do it before the summer season starts. But there are crosswalks striped on Bayard. There are crosswalks in some cases on other streets even further back. But this is prime get to the beach territory right here. So I would like to take a vote and see if we are in favor of aggressively pursuing this with the Board of Commissioners.
Discussion, please?
Yes. We don't have to take a vote yet.
Okay.
I'll press the pause button.
Okay, the discussion, are you suggesting we have double crosswalks at all of those intersections on King Charles?
To be consistent from North Rehoboth to South Rehoboth, consistency would dictate that they all be double crosswalks. Right now, I'm asking for one. Just give us one crosswalk. Logically, they should be on both sides of the street, because I believe the pedestrian traffic is probably evenly divided, depending on where
So,
people can
if
find a
people
parking
do
spot.
that,
Why would you do it?
Well, I'll just tell you, have all the, I just envision having all those striped crosswalks going down King Charles. That's a lot of,
It's a lot of
black and
paint.
white.
It's a lot of paint, but it's also, we discussed this again a year ago, it's where a pedestrian is exposed for the greatest amount of time, because that street is so
And a
wide.
lot of kids, I'll tell you, people walking their little kids and all their gear.
So
I think, well, and the thing is on.
if we ask, we could take the approach that we took when we worked on these snow emergency routes. And we were hoping to get half of Rehoboth, just get Rehoboth Avenue to be a snow emergency route. And it followed that, well, if there's a person out here that's got to get North Shores, Henlopen Acres, someone's got to get to the hospital. There's a lot of turf here. Maybe this bridge is blocked. Maybe they've got to go down State Road and circle back around. So we ended up with snow emergency routes on State, Bayard, and Rehoboth Avenue, which now gives the police department the ability to tow any vehicle that's in their way. So we were asking for Rehoboth Avenue. We then pursued that and said, well, let's do State and let's do Bayard, and we got exactly what we wanted. So should we ask for double crosswalks to be consistent all the way down this stretch of street?
One or more, yes.
Well, let's just say two. 1 + 1 = 2. So let's just say 2. Are we in favor of?
Let's call the vote. I
Yeah, well,
make a motion.
I was gonna say, before you vote, do you wanna look at all we're talking about today and put it into a kind of a package?
Well, that's one thing that really has to get resolved, because it's been hanging out for too long.
Yeah, okay.
And we've got to move further there.
Now, won't it make a difference if they do that parking?
Check out this guy in the suit back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, who is
Wow.
Good morning. You can't sneak in here. So let's ask Chief Banks. When we're making recommendations for things to happen, right now we're talking about King Charles and striped crosswalks. There may be other recommendations we come up with as we go through the meeting. My feeling is we should deal with those on a case-by-case basis to present to the mayor and the commissioners. If we put everything in one big bundle, it might get lost.
I would say that's a good approach. So at least you'll have a, to continue to work on something, or if it's going to be a dead issue to move on, I guess. So I think individual basis would be a more convenient way to move through the process.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's vote on the crosswalks on King Charles and make that a separate recommendation.
Do you
Then
want
we'll
a
move,
motion?
Just like it is on here, Newcastle, Stockley.
Doubles in each one.
Okay.
We need a motion.
I think we need a motion. We're gonna
Okay.
recommend double crosswalks on King Charles at Newcastle, Stockley, Norfolk, Rodney, and St. Lawrence.
I'll make the motion. Okay, I'll make a motion that we ask the city to install double crosswalks on King Charles Avenue at Newcastle, Stockley, Rodney, Norfolk, and St. Lawrence Streets.
Would someone like to second that?
I'll
motion?
second that.
John will second. All in favor, say aye.
And I'm gonna be in ex officio role here since I'll have to vote on it elsewhere.
Susan doesn't want to be accused of double voting. I think in my position, it's the greater good. And she'll just have a little more insight when it comes to voting next time.
But did you follow that? You're frowning.
So did you abstain? Or-
What we're
Well, I
talking about
actually-
is people have asked for
Sure, for now, I'll
crosswalks.
explain later.
Right. I think actually it was brought up once before in transportation, I think,
Yes.
and I'm not sure why it wasn't followed through, but I believe it was approved, except on this, only like on, you're saying double, and that's what was confusing me because
Yes.
I know it was on
approved
the
for
side
north
that,
side.
you know, like on each street, maybe there was just one, not on both sides, because it was the one that already has the handicap. So it flows from the one at Baird, and also it stays on the same side, so you're not crossing back and forth.
So mirror the ones on Bayard.
If I remember correctly, that's how it was kind of discussed, but I don't want to change your committee's opinions, whatever you guys want to submit, but I
think we're gonna, to be consistent from north to south on that roadway, First and King Charles, it's double crosswalks on the north end. So if I start here, we've got double crosswalks at Virginia, Olive, Maryland, Baltimore, Wilmington, Delaware, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. So all the way along here, all these crosswalks are double striped on north and south side of the intersection. Then we get down to Laurel, it's on the south side. Hickman, it's on the north side. And you've got a silent policeman in the center of the street at Laurel.
Correct.
Then there's nothing.
Okay.
So to be consistent on this roadway, we're recommending double,
Okay.
but that's not taking into account what might exist over here. Our concern a year ago and continues to be that this road is the widest street where a pedestrian is at risk or exposed for the longest period of time walking across there
And
with all the assorted stuff.
And the reality is pedestrians cross on both sides of those streets. They're gonna cross anyway. And so you may as well put the crosswalks.
So
on
our
both
feeling
sides.
is to be consistent on that roadway, we just recommend double. If it ends up being one, it's better than where we are today.
Yeah, I just have to go back and look at it again, just want to make sure they have
Okay.
ADA compliance on both sides.
I looked at every corner, and everyone's ADA on all four corners. Not knowing the ADA specs, they appear to be, visually.
They've been cut, in other words.
In layman's terms, they look like they're ADA to me. So it's one of the things I have to learn more about, is the dimensions. Okay, so we're gonna recommend, as a committee, double crosswalks. All right, now we get to the circle, and this was a concern of Chief Banks earlier this year. The circle has a transition point. When you get down to the circle, the double lamp posts that exist in the median transition to single lamp posts on the outside, on either side of the street. So it is not as well lit. Chief, are we calling this the 6th block or the 5.5 block from the circle to the canal? Is that the 6th block? We talked about the 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Excuse me, I was called Grove.
Okay.
Street, but-
All right, so from Grove, so has the opening of Rise Up improved your visibility down there? Because that was one of the things that we thought might help.
I think that has helped. There's been another street light out on the corner there at Grove that we're trying to get fixed and should be, and it's quite honestly, it's been out for almost 2 to 3 weeks now. But Apple Electric's supposed to be in this week to get that back up. So I'll have a better judgment, but it's still on the west side, I would say, it's still dark and could stand to have a little bit better lighting.
Did you pursue the increased output bulbs? I saw something where there was a little bit of a budget for bulb replacement. I don't know if that was part
I
of it
can't
or
speak
not.
for the city manager and all that. I know we've spoke about that, and I think that's gonna be up, probably for discussion in budget, because at the same time, they're talking about better wattage, better types of lights on the boardwalk as well as in other areas.
Okay. So that'll be a Kevin Williams thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, as going back to the circle and overall safety there,
That's what we're transitioning to now. We've covered lighting. Now we're moving on to the,
this is related to lighting, if I may. I want to go back to the idea that we recommend that they should take out the lighthouse and that build-up area in the center. That should be flat there for visibility, for everybody.
I can't imagine them taking out the lighthouse.
Well, it was someplace else before, but I just want to point out, well, I know, that's why I'm making another plug.
Right,
Susan.
yeah.
Because I think that's what makes the visibility so bad. The lighthouse and that built-up landscaping they have that blocks the visibility. You cannot see across the intersections there to know who's coming into the circle.
But isn't it a lot better since they chopped the bushes now?
No, they've got,
On
no,
on
it's that second
the east
tier.
side, yes, but not on the west side.
Yeah, and then, but see, and I looked at on the internet for different circles, what they look like.
Yeah.
Lots of them are just
Flat,
flat,
yeah,
and
it's
you
true.
can get
Yeah,
nice
it's true.
plantings in those areas.
Mhm.
But, and if we did that, we had flat area, you could put a tall, skinny lighting pole there then, that could create light in that area then, right around the median, okay? But I think there's a lot of advantage. I think the lighthouse, it was someplace else before. I think it was in Grove Park. It was in Grove Park, I think, before they put it in the circle. So that lighthouse can be moved around. It can be used in other areas, you know.
Does
But
it have a light on it?
no, I don't think it's got a.
That could spray, we could spray light down from that.
Right. Well, and the thing is about that lighthouse, that's just a replica.
Yes, right.
It's not the real lighthouse. That is
No,
just a
right.
replica that got put around.
Now, I was
And-
talking to Cindy, who used to be on this committee for years. She
Cindy
was
Lovett?
reminding me that there had been, even Spazzato even gave us a recommendation of taking down the wall. If you
Yeah,
take the
I was
wall
gonna ask
down, then
about
you
that.
can see much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
So that must be around here somewhere.
Yeah, so and were you envisioning that too, taking out the walls?
Oh,
and
yeah,
walls?
take that,
Taking
especially
everything
those
down to the
walls.
ground?
Take everything down
Then
to
you
the
wouldn't have to
ground.
take the lighthouse out.
Well, no, I think you still want to take the lighthouse out because I think it's such a
What if it
small.
were at ground level?
No, I still think it's too big.
That's our city motto.
I'm
It
not-
can be any place in town, guys. It can be moved. It's been moved. And I think that, because there was an accident there this past month. You know, just like we've concerned that somebody coming,
There's an
going west,
accident at the lighthouse?
At the
Yeah.
circle, there was one
Yeah.
at the circle a few weeks ago.
There was a
Yes, I
fender
forget the
bender.
details of that one, but yes, there was one recently.
The,
Oh,
the
Yeah.
accident participants relocated to the Rise Up parking lot to discuss the situation, is what I understand.
Correct.
The Henny report, it doesn't come out off-season, so
Right.
you have to wait
Where's that
until
when you need it?
Memorial Day to learn more about it. But
but
I think that there's validity to reducing the height, diameter, or even removing the walls. I think that removing the lighthouse might be very difficult. I think that part of what Rehoboth has is some character and some charm. And even though it is a replica, it is part of our presentation, if you will, to the public.
right up there.
So,
yeah, like there's a lot of
and,
water
and
right
I
there.
think that
But you know that's got a light on it.
It does have a light.
if you measure in time the obstruction of that structure, it's microscopic. However, the height of the walls is a problem, just like the shrubbery that exists from the Welcome to Rehoboth, the nation's summer capital, down to the circle. Those things are tall and get in the way. On the east side of the circle, the shrubbery was removed and the lower branches were taken off of the trees in the center, so the visibility is dramatic. It's improved 100%. I can see recommending that we deal with the walls and maybe getting everything down to ground level and perhaps having a small circular wall around the lighthouse. But I think if we recommend removing the lighthouse at the expense of dealing with the other landscaping, we could risk getting nothing. And I'd like to see us get somewhere.
I wouldn't
Well,
sacrifice
well,
one for
I
the
think
other.
the other thing to look at, I mean, really, the city needs to put safety at a premium. And that is the most dangerous area coming into town for pedestrians and bicyclists and cars, because people don't stop. And I think that we need to come up with an alternate place to put the lighthouse. Like, I think the lighthouse would be far better, closer to this. Could go up in Girard Park, where they're going to put in new restrooms, and that's closer to the boardwalk. That would actually look like it meant something, you know? Or it used to be in Grove Park, I'm pretty sure. But we can, you know, I think we just have to help the city see that they can keep that and put it someplace else. And still
Before
have a-
Streetscape, they had an exposition in the convention hall with what they were planning to do, and we could talk to the engineers. My wife and I both said, don't put a circle there, it's not big enough for it. It is, it's too small, it's a problem. If it was a bigger circle like Georgetown,
Right,
that would
exactly.
work better,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
this is
that's
too
fine.
small. And they did it anyway, because obviously we were in the minority.
Well, I think it works okay as a traffic circle, even though it's small. But
Well,
I
I
think,
don't-
I think it is tight, but I think the poor visibility is, what makes it even worse.
Do we
And I
have,
think,
I'm sorry, is there data that says visibility is the issue behind the accidents? Or is
Well,
it just,
as Chief Banks will state, there are no recorded
Yeah,
accidents
there's no date on the
in the
accident.
circle. So the one that we know about that happened recently, those participants probably did not even call the police.
well,
probably
they
worked
did,
things out.
it got
They did
filed
call-
and all that, yeah.
I did follow up, I just
Oh,
don't
okay.
remember the facts of it, that there was
Okay.
a police report. I know one of our citizen residents had put an email out and copied several people, and I followed up on it to see what happened. I gave the information at the time, I just don't recall.
That's,
But I mean, when people talk about near misses, we've all
Yeah.
had that at the.
Yeah, my sense is not the visibility.
Right.
It's people not adhering to the yield.
Yeah.
And that's the real issue. They come pouring out of there faster. First of all, they're going beyond the 20-mile-an-hour limit, right? So they're zipping through. They don't look to their left when you're coming around the circle from the, coming in from the west. They don't even look. They just
But-
pull right in.
Exactly, but I think part of it, Mark, is probably the visibility. They're not even
No,
aware
I-
that that's a circle, that they're not
I-
even aware of how that's all these people converging.
well, I think that's, you're getting closer. I think the issue from my personal experience is the people on Rehoboth Avenue feel they have priority over the people getting.
Yeah.
And it's not, but it's
That's-
not supposed to be that way. Everybody
Right.
entering the circle is on the same,
Right.
but the two lanes coming out of Rehoboth entering the circle versus the single lane coming in, the people just assume. So I write it off to rude behavior. And then you add to that visitors from other states with other, you know, you come from Jersey, they get circles all over the place. Some other place, there's no circles. I just question the assumption that it's visibility, I think it's behavior, rudeness, and other issues that.
there are multiple issues.
Yeah,
Multiple
yeah, and I'm
issues.
just thinking, but one key way to help some of that is to improve visibility. I mean, that's just a basic thing
Well,
to
but what
do.
I'm claiming is that
It's not the only.
I've made eye contact with somebody who came right on through.
But
It's
Bruce,
not-
you can't see, when you come into those, you cannot tell what pedestrians want to cross. Over on you cannot see them. You cannot see someone on a catty corner who wants to cross, or maybe is crossing, who's going to be crossing in front of you because you come around.
It's a difficult proposition because you're looking at cars, you're not thinking about pedestrians.
Or
And that gets
bicyclists.
us into the improvements in the crosswalks, the flashing lights. So we push our button, the lights flash. My sense is from looking, part of what I put on here in terms of old business is the flashing yield signs. You come upon them very quickly and they're relatively small. And there's no warning ahead of getting to that yield sign. In some cases, you've got double yield signs letting you know you're approaching and now you're here. So my feeling was the yield signs could either A, be doubled up, or B, go to a larger one with brighter lights. But I think that when you're looking for cars, particularly again, you're eastbound, there's shrubbery in the way. You don't particularly know because it's an educational proposition.
I have a
Where do I look? What's the deal? And then all of a sudden you're at the circle.
So one of the problems is this is 2 lanes, right?
Yes,
So you got 2 lanes, everything else is 1 lane.
yes.
What if you narrowed this down so it became 1 lane, so that everything's flowing into 1 lane around the circle? That first of all would slow people down going around the circle, right? From the 2 to 1. I don't know if it would impede traffic all the way back.
I'll tell you,
That's, I recommended rumble strips
Yeah, I know what those
ahead of
are.
the circle, and I think there was something about DelDOT doesn't like rumble strips, I remember.
Emergency
I don't want
does.
to speak for DelDOT, but they're not a big fan of it.
Right.
Well, I wasn't even thinking rumble strips. I was actually thinking if you begin to,
I think if you made it a merge,
Right.
and once again, we have an expert here.
Mhm.
And I've said, I've been on the record in the past, we're enthusiastic amateurs. We have to defer to the professionals.
I'm not a professional,
But-
I'm not in engineering.
But that's a good thing for us to think about
Yeah.
and pursue
idea.
perhaps, where, from what I remember, when the bicycle lanes are constructed west of the canal, the 2 lanes outbound, westbound, are gonna become 1 lane.
right.
Because we're gonna be giving up width to the bi-directional bike lanes on the north side of the street. So at a certain point, the people leaving town are gonna have to merge to 1 lane regardless.
Mhm.
And does it make sense to make them merge to 1 lane before the circle? And then get better control of those people coming around the circle before they have to merge?
The reason I
on the
bring
other
it up is
side.
I've had situations where I come around and the person on the left lane will stop. They'll see me in the circle. The person on the right just keeps going. I
Yeah.
almost,
yeah.
I almost side,
Yeah.
hit him in the side. So,
Yeah, you're right.
And as Bruce said, you can even make eye contact and they're
oh,
still
they don't
gonna-
care. They give you the finger.
Yeah, you can see,
But what about if somebody's in, what about if you're not going all the way around and you're going off? If you had the 1 lane, how would you do, would it still
Well,
be
it's
pretty easy
Right turn
to
only.
go just
You could say
off?
that, right turn only.
Yeah.
yeah, you just,
Alright.
you
It's
just.
not something that I think we could come to a conclusion today. We should probably, unfortunately, wait until the traffic builds up. Although some of these weekends, it's just like the summer.
It is.
This weekend.
Right.
Well, as a new guy, here's a question. I know there's streets that belong to the city and roads that belong to the state, and what you do.
Columbia is a state road, and then I'm
So
not
is
sure what
Rehoboth
else.
Avenue, Rehoboth Avenue.
State and Rehoboth Avenue. That's what I was going to say. Rehoboth's not going to do anything without the DelDOT being involved in it, because that is a state-maintained road. So, I mean, obviously, the city can make recommendations and sit down. I'm not here to say that. But, you know, my first thought, again, not just hearing it for the first time about merging, it depends on where you want to have the merge at, because if you have the merge on this side, just remember in summertime how it's backed up now with 2 lanes, it's going to be there. Right now, we had the issue going into Church Street where everybody has to merge and over. So you're going to still have that problem, because they're still going to go to Church Street and people are going to race around even in 1 lane to try to get ahead, because you're going to have that other lane there to be able to make a left-hand turn at Church Street. So now you're going to kind of do that twice, to jockeying back and forth to move ahead. Not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying you're
It's
going to
something we
put
should
traffic back. You're going to push it back further to Lake, where people aren't going to be able to cross, because you're going to start merging before you get up there. And as we already know, Lake and Rehoboth Avenue is kind of a bad area anyway, crossing. So, because you have to start your merge, early enough. Just, again, I'm not an engineer. It's where you put the traffic and where you start backing it up at, because we already have traffic backed up on the days that it rains going out of town, to the boardwalk already, so.
So 2 lanes back up to the boardwalk. That's all the way. We can't go any further until we. Okay.
I'm not saying it can't be done. An engineer would have to sit there and look at it. You can make your proposal, or, to the city. I'm just saying,
So in high traffic conditions, it would be worse than gridlock, is what I'm sensing.
again, not being an engineer and
Right.
doing that study, but just top of my head, I would say, yes, because you have to give people enough time to merge over and start going down to the 1 lane. And then on the other side of it, they're going to be able to, they'll be still 1 lane going out of that point, I would assume, and then you'd have to merge to the left.
So while we're at talking about the circle for a second, I noticed that it seemed at the circle that the striping was laid over the old striping. What happened down there?
I believe what happened, and is the state actually did that. I met with representatives from DelDOT before the summer was over, and with the residents here in town. And I did bring that up if we could get it restriped, and he said he was going to try to. And I assume it was the state that did it because I made a comment to the guy that paints for us, and he said he didn't do it. So I'm going to assume that means the state did it.
That is vinyl laid over the old vinyl is what it appears. where
Right.
Here, you were burning, power washing, and repainting,
Right.
which is still in process.
Correct.
That's going to occur over the winter and into the spring, or?
As long as the weather holds up, again, that would be a question for
Okay.
Kevin or Bill from the parking division that oversees that project.
Well, the other thing, I think they really painted some big arrows and redone, and even the merge is bigger, where they say merge.
Correct, and they outline the yield sign, or repaint over the yield sign and all that again, and the roadway. We are, as we
Last
spoke
year-
about, the city's kind of committed now, city manager, to each spring to try to freshen up the paint and as much as they can before the season gets in full gear, and do the others as needed. Obviously, if something's totally faded out or needs restriping, they'll try to do it as long as weather's available to do so.
Last summer, DelDOT was doing that work on the bridge. Yeah,
Yes.
that works for them. Anyway, and they had huge signs up there at the circle. Now, I don't know if we need them that big, but we could certainly have a bigger one than we have.
It's inexpensive when you consider to make a sign bigger or just put double signs, high and low. It's not very costly.
Well, and the one we have has blinking lights too around it.
And there are ones out there that have brighter lights and more lights. They're different sizes, different numbers of lights, and they're not expensive. What I was curious about, do you have any idea what those solar-powered signs that flash your speed, what the expenses involved in those?
I don't right off the
One
bat.
coming into town.
I can get a price.
I was just curious.
Yeah, we've done the ones on Columbia Avenue, the city paid for. I had to get the research and do that a few years back. The ones just outside of town that was paid for either by Senator Lopez or Representative Swarskoff.
Okay.
But I think with the circle, that as, we would be wise to be thinking ahead how to improve it, because it's just gonna get busier on that end of town.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I just said, there's been a lot of concern, and it's just gonna get busy, and we need.
Does this committee have a process of reaching out to DelDOT engineers to say, here's the problem we're trying to solve, can you give us some options?
Those are the pathways that have to be reconnected that we lost when Kathy resigned.
Okay.
So that's part of what you have knowledge of.
I can-
She
It's
was on
somewhere,
more
it's
than the
somewhere in
committee.
here.
Yeah.
You know what,
Yeah.
Or in here.
the other question, yeah, we need to make that connection. But the other thing I have as far as improving things on the circle and getting people coming west on Rehoboth Avenue to slow down, wonder if there were an actual policeman there giving people tickets. And I've never seen a policeman in that area, and I think it would be tricky. But I think maybe giving some people some tickets to blow through there, and that people know that might be a way to highlight it.
We used to sit right there as you come in town, as well as the old market there, McQuay's. Now we only have at the bridge, so I can't be sitting on the other side or even run radar. I have to get them in town speeding, not out of town, just because our car's sitting in town. So I have, and then
It's
with
almost like you'd have to
with
wait.
egg being filled up, there's just, you can't, yes, I take one of their parking spots and then they get upset because, as all the businesses do, when I sit right in front of their, so it's that balancing act. We do sit there, like this morning when I came in, there was a police officer sitting a little bit further down, but that's not before the circle, it's on the east of the circle.
How about where at Grove Park there, where there's the old building and the parking area?
Visitor center?
The visitor center, like, Like if someone, you know, goes through that intersection from Rehoboth Avenue and they don't yield, you'll have to get them once after they leave the circle. So that puts you right there where the visitor center is.
But you have to have a line, say for the radar, you just said about speeding, so.
We're talking about
And not
not
just
yielding
speeding, it's
versus
just not
speeding.
yielding,
Well-
not yielding. They don't yield and they go through, and that's the problem. It's not always.
Again, it just sounds like I'm making excuses up. We could do that, obviously, we're the police, but at the same time, is that good stewards to be sitting there in the museum's parking lot to be able to pull out, because we'd be right in their driveway. That's the reality of it. If you're sitting there, you're blocking their driveway.
Why couldn't a policeman be on the sidewalk and flag them down and pull them over and not necessarily have the car there? Like, you know, be there and observe, and if someone doesn't yield, you flag them down off to the curb and give them a ticket.
A couple of things there. One is if somebody's going around a circle or whatever, and somebody, I've heard 20, 25, 30, whatever, are they really good? They're looking around. First of all, if the officer steps out, they're going to have to step out into the traffic to wake, otherwise you're just waving at somebody. But the next thing is, no longer is the handwritten tickets done in Delaware. They're all electronic in a car computer. There's called e-tickets, so there's no handwritten tickets anymore. Those days are gone. So you have to have a car there. That's why people get upset about seasonal officers, where they're not giving this ticket out of that ticket. Well, they can't. So you're going to have a patrol car, and not only
Which could be parked off the street in the parking area, right?
Impeding the flow of
okay.
people.
Where are you going to pull the car over? Where are you going to pull the car over at?
Well,
If
yeah,
I
don't
chase them
know
down
that.
and flag them, they stop. I say, "Ma'am, sir, I need you to pull over. I talk to you or give you a citation." Where am I going to pull them over at? Outside of town, and then the officer runs down to them? I'm not trying to be facetious, but there's just nowhere.
There are very limited opportunities. for
What we end up
space.
doing sometimes during the summer months is I'll put an officer at, stand at rural farms as people are going there and stand, and they will call out on the radio if people fail to yield, and I'll have them sitting down, quite honestly, outside of town, which they get upset with me sometimes at the moped place, and pull them over there. Because I have a safe area to pull them over to the side on the shoulder versus that. So we do that, but you're taking two individuals up at that time, and usually there's two people working.
It might be worth it. It might be worth it, really, because that intersection, like so many people don't.
Again, we're saying we do it. I'm not trying to make excuses up. We have two individuals working at a time. If you get a complaint, they're leaving. So if one leaves, you stop the process. If a resident calls or alarm at a business or a crime of some type or just a medical emergency, you're leaving. It's, again, yes, we're doing it. Can we do more? Yes. I'm not, please don't take away, I'm trying to put roadblocks up. I'm hearing what the committee's saying, and I'll bring it up to my lieutenants and myself, and we'll sit down and do more. You know. But I just wanted to not put that up to say we won't do it, because we are and we can do better. Is that I want at the same time let you know that it's not as easy as it sounds sometimes, just to
Well, I'm glad to
put
hear
a
you're
car
doing that,
there.
because I've never seen it, and I
Right.
just thought, like, those people who aren't yielding, I mean, that is a serious infraction. They do need to get some tickets there.
Right.
But I understand it's very difficult
Right.
physically to do that.
Okay, we got to keep moving or we're going to run out of time. Walk your bike stencils. We asked for them, we got them. Are there any places where you've seen one that needs to be placed? Any particular corner that got missed? That's a good thing.
I don't know.
Some of them, the paint is fading and need to be resprayed, but for the most part, my sense is they've accomplished the objective. But we just want to improve upon that, because as Bruce is well aware, in other parts of the world, and even outside, once you cross the canal, you can ride on the sidewalk. So it's only here where you can't ride on the sidewalk. And that's a problem with the students.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as you cross that bridge, what bridge? I can just see it now. It's transparent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, how many do we have of those?
I believe there are 45.
45.
I think there are 45 stencils.
I,
I don't know if they've been mapped, but that's hopefully part of what will happen when we get to the um, merge. We'll pinpoint all of the signs. Currently, there's no record of all the signs. There are somewhere in the 2,500 sign range in the city that aren't mapped. There's no spreadsheet, no map point. They're just out there.
You count the stencils as a sign.
We asked for signs, we got stencils, and the stencils are good.
Yeah.
Because the signs are at 8 feet and they're not even there.
Yeah.
And
No, I
the
think the
signs
stencils are great.
address things that from the past, rollerblades have pretty much become passé, but skateboards are still around.
Yeah.
So
More
the
skateboards than
stencil
ever.
thing was a project that we got accomplished, and they're nicer stencils, they're more attractive stencils, but we want to keep the bikes off the sidewalk. Because we don't want to see people getting hit by a bicycle. They're not looking for a bicycle on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Surf Avenue is another major project. Because Surf Avenue, we're talking about removing permitted parking to make the street safer for cyclists and pedestrians. Of benefit now is that the Deauville Beach parking lot is now a permitted parking lot. Where it used to be a pay lot, now it's a permit parking lot. So if you have a Rehoboth parking permit, you can park in that lot,
Oh,
which actually puts you closer to the ocean
yeah, they just did. Okay.
than parking along the side of Surf Avenue.
yeah.
Surf Avenue is narrow, it's congested,
Mm-hmm.
it's a favorable bike loop pathway.
Oh, we had that extra road coverage put in there. It was very clearly said that that was not a bike lane. But obviously, I mean, you can use it for a
There's
bike
a-
lane, but it's not a dedicated bike lane.
There's a
right?
white stripe along the east side, north side, ocean side of the roadway
Mhm.
that is a de facto bike lane currently.
Yeah,
Then it transitions between Oak and Park to permitted parking. Walter, our honorary member, brought up at a meeting previously that if we remove that parking, which does have associated revenue generation to the city, because it is permitted space, we at the very least have got to have a drop-off zone for people to drop off all their stuff. So my feeling is the center line of the street needs to be restriped. The permitted parking can now go to Deauville Beach. So we're not really taking away direct revenue. Whereas down here on King Charles, this could all become direct revenue space as opposed to permitted space. Right now it transitions to permitted space. This is permitted space. So, and this is something that Chief Banks and I talked about earlier this year. This is a dangerous area.
yeah.
This is a continual near-miss zone that we can correct, again, with minimal expense by moving the center line, taking the parking space width and reducing it, moving the center line, and now we can have bikes on both sides of the street and pedestrians and their beach wagons, et cetera. Because not everyone just walks to the beach with a backpack beach chair. There's a lot of other associated equipment.
So David, with this, how many parking spaces would be forfeited?
I did not count.
What's your estimate?
6 or 8.
Yeah, I was
not
gonna
a
say
lot.
fewer than
It's not
10, yeah, I would say.
I'd say
That's a lot of
Okay,
money.
on the high, well,
And I hate to mention,
but again, you say it's a lot of money.
But I don't know that
I
Dover's
mean, each
full.
meter,
No,
Well,
those
it's
are
not a meter,
permitted
those are
spaces,
permitted
they're not
spaces.
metered spaces. Those are sticker
They're
spaces.
permitted.
Those are permitted
it's just
spaces.
for residents.
So,
Or anyone
But-
who buys a day
But
ticket could
But
buy
some
it.
of them may not have bought it for that space, some may have bought them for the house they're staying at over
Yeah.
on the south side of
It could
town, so
be-
there's no revenue loss there. And
My feeling is that a lot of those spaces near the beach are occupied by homeowners
Yeah,
or renters who have what I call transitional parking permits. The
Yeah.
mirror ones
Right.
come with the rental. Those tags and those stickers are zero revenue to the city of Rehoboth Beach because you get them free as a homeowner.
Come on.
So
or you pay for them regardless.
Or
you
even if
you
figure-
can buy them, and what I don't know is if I were to conduct a survey,
How many
at
of
some
those?
point you could identify
Mhm.
which are zero revenue and which have revenue attached. But either way,
They can.
this parking lot is closer to the ocean
Yeah.
and you use the same permit there.
Do we know
So-
that it's available? I mean, do we know that it's not full during most days?
I don't know. It was eye-opening to me when we were doing our merge tour and Kevin Williams said this has now become a permitted lot. So
Yeah, I
I was
didn't know
asking the
either.
question, how much is it? No,
Yeah.
it's now a permit lot. So your parking pass,
but
you
it's,
can park there.
okay, but we could look at the permits, how much if someone bought a season, a summer-long pass, what, they're about $250?
Something like that, yeah.
So just assume, even if people were buying permits for that, let's say it's $250, let's say if it's, 8 spaces, that's what, $2,000?
Yeah, but they're not, there's no way that they're all.
They're not
purchased
direct
there.
revenue
Yeah, there's
spaces.
no-
Well, I'm
there's-
just saying
Yeah,
the
maybe-
maximum, it
maybe
sounds like the
two of
maximum.
Maximum, yes.
Would be 2,000, maximum revenue loss
But I
would
don't
be
think there's any revenue
$2,000,
lost.
which is
It's
not that big a
Alternative
deal.
places to park.
In the grand scheme of the parking revenue to the city of Rehoboth Beach, that would be less than 1% of their revenue, if it could even be identified, in my opinion. If it means moving that 1%, and again, there's a huge parking lot sitting here waiting to be restriped
Right.
by changing the parallel parking to perpendicular parking for a minimal expense. This is the way people are gonna come in and out of the city of Rehoboth Beach. And we're forced, and I had this conversation the other day, these are the maps.
Yeah.
These
Absolutely.
aren't the maps. And I can ask Bruce, his kids, how are they're going on Google Maps or they're going on Waze and they're putting in where they want to go. And if they're really good at it, they're going to press the bicycle icon and it's going to show them how to ride their bicycle. And one day, perhaps it will ask them, would you like the safest way or the fastest way? Like my car asked me 3 different ways. I want to go the economical way. I don't want to go the fast way, shortest way, etc. This is what guides people. These signs are going to be very nice and very attractive, and they're going to help improve the character and the charm of the city. But at the same time, this is what people are using, and that's a danger zone.
I never even give that a thought.
Yeah, no, I read.
You know, I hate to mention it, but there is a compromise. There is room there to move the cars off the road completely like they park in Dewey. Just,
And that's a parking thing which I can't comment on, but
You mean like park on the, in the
park on the
sand?
grass.
on the grass,
On
yeah.
the east side.
If you go
On the
there,
east
there's a
side.
few places where there's trees, it just wouldn't work. But of the 6 or 8 parking spaces in question, probably more than half can be just moved off the road.
It's still gonna involve people getting in and out of cars, opening doors,
Yeah.
Right, no, I agree that.
and having a difficult
But if there's
time.
pushback and the whole thing dies,
Yeah.
that's a compromise that's available.
And 2 other points here. Number one.
I'm
talk
just looking for verification. I'm leaning over to see.
No, I'm just listening to, in that whole area, you may know more, in a recent workshop, I told them about having an engineer, city manager's talking about engineering, at the,
Yeah, I was trying to.
point there, and I thought there was some talk that engineer was looking at the whole concept all the way down to surf and Henlopen,
Yeah.
or down surf to Henlopen.
Yeah.
So that's,
I still, I remember, I
cautious
remember,
about saying that,
yeah,
but I
I'm
think
picturing the map and I can't
Commissioner,
remember,
I want to
can't
say,
remember.
it was brought up at a workshop, that
It was,
city manager
yeah, it
made
was-
a comment that had they hired, or they're looking to hire a engineer to look at the, point out the Henlopen hotel area and break
Yeah, there are
And I thought
7
it was gonna
proposals.
go further down.
Yeah.
7 proposals. We recommended as a committee, quite simply, walk your bicycle behind the hotel. It's inexpensive, it's safe. There are other proposals that involve pavement, curbs, construction, et cetera.
That whole crazy area at the end of
get-
the Henlopen, where there's
Right.
a triangle like we.
But
But I
that's-
thought that part just ended at the Henlopen. I didn't think they went all the way down Surf with the
That's
plan.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
boardwalk
under
committee
the
thing.
Yeah.
Impression.
Could it be
I'm sorry,
extended?
Maybe I misheard, that's why I was looking to.
Yeah.
That it doesn't
I'm
go
trying to remember.
further down, because if so, we get some proposals, well, then at the end of the day, maybe the committee having to sit there and do it, somebody may do work, then it comes
Yeah, I'll
back
have
to
to
you,
look, I'll look
at
and
it
see what I
all,
can find.
And have, make a decision what you guys. think.
That zone around the Henlopen Hotel, we deferred to the boardwalk committee.
Yeah.
We passed along a
They presented-
recommendation, and then they had 7 proposals on how to,
I guess I would just ask the city manager if that is a
Yeah.
part of the proposal, that, because I kind of thought I heard somewhere, but I may be wrong,
But are you,
that they were going to take the same firm and look at Surf Avenue, how far down that will go.
so we could ask this idea about Surf Avenue to be included with what work they do at the end of the Henlopen.
Or
No,
maybe it
integrate.
already is.
we're gonna find out if
might
it's in
be,
play or
or-
not.
Yeah, okay.
I think it would be good to improve Surf Avenue and get some more width and space there for bicyclists and pedestrians as well as cars. And I think as far as a drop-off area, people could be encouraged to go into the Deauville parking area and
Again,
drop off right there.
That's a space that was taken up a while during construction for Ocean Outfall, that's now readily available, that given that it's permitted, someone could drive in there and come back out quite easily to drop somebody off, quite easily.
Yeah,
But somebody
and-
staying here, renting one of these houses, is gonna walk right straight across.
Yeah,
And I can-
There are 2 pathways here now to the ocean.
But it would
I'm not
be-
sure if we have beach mats there or not, but there are 2 pathways existing. One of them has the little snack shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that area is very popular. And ultimately, I would like to see us requesting of the city more bicycle racks.
Yeah.
Because more people would ride their bicycles to the beach.
Like where we take
And-
out those parking spaces and all along, instead of putting more parking on the grass and dunes, just make that a great big long line of bicycle racks. So people can, and have them park facing the
That would
ocean.
work.
Yeah, because we need tons. But I think it'd be better to encourage people to, don't encourage it to drop off there because that's dangerous to pedestrians getting out of the cars.
So
And so-
should we recommend that the drop-off zone be in the Deauville Beach lot?
Yeah, maybe we encourage that, or there could be
Where,
signs. you
where's
know,
the
drop
access
off.
to the lot?
They don't need to drop off.
You
if they're in the
go,
lot.
you're still in the city, believe it or not.
Once you
Right
get
about
out,
here it ends.
Okay, so right here.
No,
So
I-
you're on Henlopen Avenue,
Yeah, I think
heading
somebody,
toward Ocean Drive,
Okay, so it'd be here?
right where the road bends.
yeah, I
right
don't
here.
know that there's a whole lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because the bikes, this is really heavily used by bicyclists. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's really frightening to
Yeah.
bicycle.
Well,
around.
it's particularly scary when the entrance to the Deauville Beach lot backs up. And now people are in the bike lane on the shoulder,
Right.
waiting to get into the parking lot. And now you've got to pop out around a row of cars, which the road now becomes a little narrow.
Yeah.
And the
And
other,
we haven't gotten to the Sharrow conversation yet about, does the bike take preference over the automobile in some of these spaces here, which is part of our whole bike loop project, which we're gonna get back to. So
But-
I think that we say, Plan A is a Deauville Beach, use that for drop-off.
For drop off.
Then the street can be consistent. But that's not to say people aren't gonna stop here and unload anyway.
That's right.
And if there
Plus,
is,
there are a bunch of bike racks there that will be
Right.
a place for them to stop.
I've
But you know-
heard but not observed that the bike racks get full.
Yeah.
I've heard that the snow fencing, dune fencing is full of bicycles when the bike racks get full.
Yeah.
So that's something I gotta look at, we can all look at over the
I
course
think
of
that's accurate.
the beginning of the summer. Because in cities around the world, space gets taken away from cars and given to bicycles. more and more and more.
Yep.
And we have a whole European influence here that we need to use as a tool to help guide us in where we can go. Because some of these recommendations, like there was a recommendation for stop signs at the circle, and I just start thinking about 0 miles per gallon in pollution. And if we're already backing up to the bandstand with a circle, what's going to happen if we have a stop sign there? It's like, it would be like turning Rehoboth into a gated community. And that, seriously, you couldn't move. Do you ever drive across Kent Island?
Kent Island?
Kent Island. It's next to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Yeah,
They're doing construction on the Chesapeake Bay
Yeah.
Bridge. One lane is closed.
Yeah.
So on a Sunday, if you were to drive west, and the entire Kent Island is full of cars, and because of the phones and Waze and Google Maps, every side street is full of cars. Those people can't move.
You can't get out.
Think about where the fire department's located and what happens if they have to go somewhere. I'm thinking about the merge. I'm kind of getting back to the merge, thinking if we're backed up to here already,
yeah.
See, that's why we
but
need a
those guys
shuttle.
have to go
Yeah, but
somewhere.
I think you need to get an engineer to look at that, because merges, the problem with merges, everybody waits to the very last minute. So like, if you're on the highway, you see left lane closed a mile ahead, everybody waits to the last mile. That's what causes the
And
congestion.
statistically, that's supposed to be the best way to do it.
It's not.
No,
It's
you
not.
wait till you
Why?
got, you,
Best way for
no,
who?
they tell you to zoom up to the
And-
very end.
And everybody waits to the end and they fight with each other and they jockey. But if you funnel people in very early and you say single line, it keeps moving.
I read that and it just cracked me up. This article's talking about how you wait till the last minute.
Yeah, I know, it's,
I'm having a hard time with that. Okay,
Well,
so.
I think that,
well-
back on Surf Avenue, I think the
And
other
that would be
thing,
especially true if you didn't know it was
to
going to be
point out
merged.
here,
Right.
David,
Because you're in the wrong lane.
right,
the other-
And that happens going out.
yes. It happens anyway.
but the other
Yeah.
thing on Surf Avenue is that the one sidewalk on the west side is so narrow. It's a narrow little sidewalk,
Mhm.
and what you see a lot of are people,
Walking the
kids
street.
with their wagons.
Yeah, in the
You
street.
see a lot of people with their little kids and wagons in that area, and they're walking on the street.
Right, right.
And that's why it's dangerous.
That's part of what Chief Banks brought to my attention. And it's why that's on here. That's one of the major reasons, because it's bad enough with adults, but think about these kids.
Mhm.
Right, but I guess
And
what
they're
I'm-
the ones that have the radio flyer full of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm wondering if why they're added, if they might not just work on the sidewalk, make a wider sidewalk on that one side, and keep the pedestrians on the sidewalk.
Let's stick with one thing at a time here.
Yeah,
So what is,
right now we want to make the road safer.
Safer.
Right.
And move
Wider
the
than
cars,
right.
relocate the cars, and
so
restripe.
what is the actual proposal? No parking along the side here, right? Not on the street. No street
The
parking.
recommendation that I'm looking for, and again, this is a committee, but the recommendation I'm looking for is eliminate on-street parking on the ocean side of Surf Avenue.
Right.
From the midpoint of Oak and Pennsylvania over to Henlopen Avenue.
Mhm.
Suggest that the drop-off zone be the Deauville Beach parking lot and not along Surf Avenue, which would be better in terms of traffic flow and safety.
Mhm.
Because then there wouldn't be cars stopped and getting in the way.
Mm.
And again, I'm gonna look for professional guidance on this, but I think that would be better if the drop-off zone is here. So then the issue would become cars backed up getting into the Deauville Beach lot, creating a issue on Henlopen Avenue before it turns onto Ocean Drive to go into North Shores.
Mhm.
That's the potential problem that we would create.
We should have to
But-
watch and see if it happens.
Well, if you're going to the new way of paying, maybe that backup won't be an issue.
That's right, because it's now not gonna have, it's not gonna be a manned
Right.
pay booth, you're right. It's just gonna be pull in with your permit and find a place to park. That will
Is that
probably
true?
eliminate,
Is that
so that
true?
will probably eliminate, well, again, if it's a permitted lot, you're just gonna.
No, it's both. My understanding this year was if you have a permit, you may park there, but I thought there was still a guy there for people who came in for the day and wanted to pay for the day.
We'll find out.
So I think it was both. That was
I
my
see.
understanding, it was both.
But it's a
Is
day's,
that right?
It was this past year, yeah.
Is
And, yeah, because,
it
But
the
it's
plan
for
to
the
keep
full
it that
day.
way?
Pardon?
it's for a full day.
Okay, yeah.
So there will be, the little
Right, right.
hut will be
It's not
manned.
metered, in other words.
Yeah, if
But
you,
that
But
should,
there is
that
That's
should
good.
hopefully
Yeah,
mean
okay.
most people are just gonna pass right through. Because in theory, we've already captured their funds along the avenue
Mm.
or along Bayard. But if people go around the circle and head toward the ocean on Columbia or Henlopen, they're gonna bypass the ability to buy a parking pass. They have to buy it up here.
yeah, and that's what it does, and I think that's a huge lot, I think it collects enough money to pay for that guy.
How many
So-
spaces? Do you know? Any idea? Okay.
I'll bet
Is
they're
it more than
500.
here? About 100 here.
Oh, you know, that's far bigger,
It's
Susan.
far, okay.
Down in
Okay.
Deauville, it's
Wow.
far,
I'm
far
just trying to
bigger.
Really?
remember.
All right, the next part's gonna be quick, because you're gonna get an email link to this book. John has his copy. And this, again, is part of the wonderful history that Kathy handed over to me. June 2012, pedestrian and bicycle plan. How many years ago is that?
Almost 8.
7.5.
Delaware Greenways, who's always asking us for contributions.
Good for them. There's a lot of Rails to Trails, East Coast Greenway, there's a lot of
There is.
organizations that need support, because they're working for us,
Yeah.
so to speak. So Ann was able to find this, it exists, we're gonna get a link to it. So my feeling is, rather than reinvent the wheel, let's use this as a guideline and then try to hand to the Board of Commissioners, this is our bike loop map, please get it taken care of, thank you very much. Because we've had multiple discussions in the past year, I didn't know this existed, covering the same ground. So
You're right.
here,
And is it the same loop? I mean, we spent a lot of time doing that bicycle.
we spent a lot of
but
time doing the loop, so we're
It's
gonna,
pretty well defined,
our
isn't it?
homework, I'll use Kathy's term homework, as the retired teacher. Our homework is, I'm gonna send you the link to this, go through it, let's boil down the, however many pages there are here, oh my God, too many to count. So we can finalize the recommendation that we came up with earlier, which is this blue line going around, and hopefully work in conjunction with the shuttle service, which hopefully will come into existence. And have a coordinated effort.
Last year, that shuttle service that you're holding up, is that what they presented last December?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. we just
So
have to see if
this
they do the same
was-
one.
And again, I reached out to Lydia, she didn't get back to me, but then you have a meeting.
Monday,
here-
next Monday she's
Right.
presenting, yeah.
So I think we have to take our cue for that, and hopefully our role in that will just be fine tuning, if anything needs to be done at all. Because my general feeling is, when it comes to this map, the biggest problem will be, where does this thing stop?
Oh, yeah,
Do you want it to stop in front of your house?
sure.
Okay,
No.
we're gonna. Oh, you
I
changed.
can walk a block over.
Oh, okay. That to me, just like when we were replacing 4x4 signposts on this project, where does it go? Where's it gonna stop? Is it gonna stop in front of Mark's house, is it your house, in front of my house? Where's it gonna stop?
This is the shuttle?
This is the proposed shuttle, and as I said earlier, this is all dependent upon what I would consider to be major budgetary considerations on the part of the vendor. The vendor it has to make
Yeah.
economic sense for the vendor. They've got a viable business currently, but maybe
Well,
this doesn't work for
The
them, and
city
that's
would
something.
be paying for, at least would be funding it initially.
Right.
So the city would subsidize, so that means it's a good chance of going through. So then, that leads me to the lots where Bruce has his home away from home, back by Jungle Gyms.
Hmm.
Those lots becoming free,
Yeah, did you hear about that?
and then
They're gonna be free.
you only
next summer.
pay,
Yeah,
so the lot in Lewis
the parking lot.
and the park and ride lots are gonna become free, and you'll only pay for the bus.
How much is the bus, they think?
I heard $4.25.
Oh, I thought it was two.
Yeah, it's
But-
pretty,
I thought it was
Even
$2
less
each
for
way in.
seniors.
for something unlimited for the day.
Oh,
Or you could pay by the ride, which is $2.
No,
Right.
I'm just curious.
So that presents another opportunity for people to park out there for a couple bucks. Let's say five. Let's say it's
Cheaper than parking.
$5 to get in,
Right. Take the
connect to
shuttle.
this one, if it's not going where they want to go, but they'll end up at the bandstand for less than $5 and back. That's huge to me.
But how is
If
that
we- That's an
different
education process. that
than
we'll
what
have
it
to
is
occur.
now? What's different?
I don't know. I believe you had to pay for the lot in the past.
Yeah, the lot was, what was it, $10 a day or something?
Whoa.
$5
8 or
a day?
$10, but it,
Oh,
it
really?
came with
Yeah.
a
Came
bus
with-
pass.
Oh.
Okay,
So
so
you,
so
I
it's
didn't
like
know
a
that.
$6 difference.
quite affordable for a family of 4 to park their car, get on the bus, and go to the
Mhm.
beach.
I think the problem with the park and ride is just lack of advertising. And I think there,
It's an education issue, yes.
you know, I just think there needs to be huge advertising and also I think
Dart.
Dart did a good job. They made a cute bus that, you know, the buses that
Beach
were.
bus?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
beach bus that said this ride rides to
Right.
connects to the tan lines, you know? And it had,
Well-
did you see that bus? It's on the side. It looked, people were sitting on beach chairs leaning back, you know? So, but I think buses that are shuttles that are successful, they're very decorative, colorful shuttles.
They also have to
that
run,
people
but
easily
the
recognize.
problem with shuttles, honestly, is they have to run very often.
Yes,
No one wants to stand in a parking lot for half an hour waiting for a
That's
bus
the
to get you to the beach.
that's the problem. These were.
Okay, having grown up in New York, you took the subway, you were there every 10 minutes it ran, the buses ran constantly. So,
Well, I also think for other resorts, I'm familiar with ski resorts, they had the same problem. They're seasonal.
Mhm.
The need fluctuates, but they also have, the people riding it got all this stuff.
yeah,
And the trick is, the bus has to be free. There's no paying and you just get on, get off. So every stop is really fast. So you can have lots of stops that are basically just street corners. They're not a
I wonder if it
formal bus stop.
might be better served. The ski resorts, some of them are amazing. We were just in
You
one
put your
earlier this
your
year.
skis outside.
They had a
on the
loop that
rack.
went both directions.
But the
Which way do
ski,
you want to go?
Where was that?
oh, that was Aspen, where, and most of them, you know, you've got racks outside where you put your skis,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But it's really the ski resorts that are paying for those shuttles.
right.
Those are not
It's
the
in the,
town.
it's in the
a
lift
ski-
ticket, so to
But
speak.
It's
Right,
a
so the
ski.
conversation then becomes, how do you pay for it?
Right.
Don't assume it has to be a for-profit solution. It- it-
But I
Especially if it
really,
doesn't work.
I really think though, for a shuttle to really be highly effective here, it's one that, so people will leave their cars at home. And who currently drives into town? I think it's more people like at North Shores, Henlopen Acres, areas, you know, nearby residential. Yeah, and that's where the shuttle really should go, is go around there and pick up those people, so those people leave their
Right.
cars at home. And I don't think it's in town so much, because I don't think I'm gonna use a shuttle, because I'm within walking, biking distance.
Right.
I doubt I'll ever use a
Right.
shuttle. And so I think it's far more important for the commissioners to highlight that. And work with the Jolly Trolley to pick up in those areas, because, and last I heard, they were just gonna talk about an in-town, you know, around the perimeter. And I'm afraid that there won't be that much ridership, and then people give up on the idea.
Oh,
And so in a way, I think,
we're off the agenda.
well, it's down there.
This is not on the agenda.
So
It's good talk, though.
I'm also going to send you an email as we get closer to the merge implementation. In a lot of cases, this is going to boil down to terminology. But they have an entire plan that they presented to the commissioners for pedestrian signage, so parking, pedestrian, and the trails. And again, I find the particular problem with the trail signage that people don't necessarily know what the trails are called. I want to go to Lewis. That's the question I get asked. How do I get back to Rehoboth? That's the question. It's not, how do I get to the Gordon's Pond Trail? Because I don't even know the name of the trail. Or the J&B. It's how do I get where I want to go? So I think as we get closer on that, we probably want to get a little more involved. And the only thing, and again, I'll get these from Evan, the only thing that I found disturbing among all of this was there's no more lighthouse, it's just the bandstand. And it doesn't say the nation's summer capital anymore. How can we lose that?
That for the entrance.
Yeah, this is the sign in the median as you cross the canal,
Right.
past the museum turnoff, that one. So we're gonna have that stuff to look at. So getting back to the agenda quickly. I've had comments about the noise at the circle from all the horns honking. And it's
But so many
it's
people aren't
from
yielding.
the people that work around there suffer with it their entire shift. One of the guys in Rise Up told me the record right now is 1 minute on the horn. They're actually keeping track. It's like a little in-house,
That's because
fun
people
thing.
are not yielding.
Wow.
And they're keeping track. They're
So-
keeping the noise.
Well, you know, that's another dangerous spot on the circle, because I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but if you're coming out, what is that street?
Grove.
Yeah,
You
Grove.
come
Yeah.
out on Grove.
But
And you watch the traffic coming into town, they make a dip to go around the curve, around the circle. Now, when they make that dip, are they gonna turn right and go in the Rise? Or are they gonna come down the street?
Right,
And you can't really tell. And, I mean, I almost got because the guy he had a turn signal on. So I thought he was gonna turn. That was my mistake. Yeah, I almost got hit. But that is a wicked spot right there. Right where that, yeah. I don't know how you could correct that because the
It's
circle's
become
so
wicked
small.
because that business is so popular.
Yeah, really.
And it's the parking
Well, it
lot.
was
can get
7-Eleven
full.
before, and that was
Yeah.
popular.
So
Not as. This is far more.
I'm just, one of the things that again, I talk about the charm and the character, and now all of a sudden we've got this horn honking going on. We have loud motorcycles cruising Rehoboth Avenue. I don't know what they're looking for or what they're expecting to find, but they're taking laps around downtown. And then scooters buzzing around. We've had issues with scooters buzzing around neighborhoods because they're not quiet. So I don't know if we get involved, at what level we get involved, but it's at least come to my attention in the short period of time I've been involved with the committee, it's come up more and more that it's no longer quiet here. And I think back 25 years and the shift, there have been many changes in the dynamics here, and people coming from further away with different traffic mindsets from parts to the north of here where states begin with the word new.
Yeah.
That they have a different way of thinking about stuff like this. And I keep getting into the relax, you're at the beach. You need to learn
Yeah.
about relax, you're at the beach. You don't need to use your horn. Maybe you could flash your headlights, that's quiet. But nobody flashes their headlights anymore. That's gone
The
away.
headlight works itself.
So I just like us to be aware of that. And has there been any?
So are we gonna take this up in
Well,
the
it's just something to
future?
be thinking about.
Or just
Right,
think
right.
about?
We
Well,
have large issues to take care of, and people honking horns is gonna be pretty, does it keep people safer? It just makes the city more pleasant.
I've never heard
Right.
that.
Well, I think what happened, it's the problem.
Sit on the
with
porch at Egg and wait for a table.
Okay.
You heard
it's-
there?
It's the problem with the circle and people not yielding and things like that. And like when somebody doesn't yield for me and they put me at risk, I do give them the horn. They need
Oh,
they need
okay.
some consequence.
That's where it comes from.
No, they need to be trained. You just went through a yield sign. How else are they going to know? You know, like that's not right. So I give them not a loud horn, but you know, I think they need some feedback. And that's the only way you can do it.
I'm afraid that, I just don't know that horns are an education process.
Well,
I think that a lot of the people you're honking at could care less. It's,
I think you get their attention and they know, uh-oh, they did something
so.
wrong. And they do a
There's a-
double take.
there's a vibe out there that I'd like to see if we can try to implement a way to shift the temperament and lower the stress levels. Because I see people with a death grip on the steering wheel coming into the city. They're hyper about getting a parking space. And that's the total focus, because the word is everywhere that you can't park here.
Correct.
Well,
And yet we've already learned that there's clearly plenty of parking and there can be more. And it's a great source of revenue for the city, which thankfully doesn't have to resort to charging you to stick your toes in the water. So,
Well, David, I think part of it is, and all this is congestion. I just think as we've gotten busier and it's more congested, people feel more desperate to get their spot.
Mhm.
and
And
then
that's
we have
what
the
it
shuttle
is.
service.
Well, the shuttle service, I think, would take a lot of stress off them. I think that's the best thing the city can do to alleviate the in-town.
If it would be used.
And if it
It has to be designed so it will be
if it
used.
prevents people from coming in
Correct.
versus just moving them around once
Correct.
they're here, yeah, that's the
Right.
problem.
The park and ride is a wonderful tool,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and it needs to be exploited. And the shuttle service hopefully will come into existence, and then it'll just be a function of fine-tuning it, fine-tuning the routes. Does it become a stop service or a flag service, et cetera?
Right.
One of the things I've run into is cyclists and bikers. What's a biker? What's a biker in your mind?
Put me on the spot.
To me, it's a person on a motorcycle.
That's what I
Yeah.
think too.
Oh, no.
To me, a biker's a person.
No, somebody.
It's very confusing.
No, that's a
Somebody
cycle.
definition that's
They're
two-wheel
both
pedal.
bikers.
No, bikers and motorcycles, no, I totally agree.
Whereas cyclist is not subject to misinterpretation.
Right.
Biker is subject to misinterpretation.
Right,
Biker
right,
could be a
right.
couple different things. And the same is true of what I call internal combustion engine scooters versus e-scooters.
Electric scooters
Electric
versus.
scooters.
And that's, I wonder what that.
Electric scooters are a problem. And again, I've had this conversation with Chief Banks.
Electric
They're,
problem?
they're banned in Ocean City.
Electric scooters?
Electric scooters are a problem everywhere they appear. They're a successful diversion away from driving, or are they a successful diversion against getting away from walking? Where are they? So everywhere I go, they're on the sidewalk. 99% of the time, they're on the sidewalk, and they're quiet. They don't make any noise. Maybe they're energy efficient, depends upon the battery, where the battery came from, how it was made, what the toxic chemicals are inside the battery, where the steel came from, et cetera, et cetera. But these services that rent scooters create lots of injuries. Lots of
Electric
injuries.
scooters?
Electric scooters, e-scooters, lots of injuries. Because unlike a bicycle, which we're all brought up to ride, we've never been brought up to ride an electric scooter. So there are services that may well one day want to seek license to rent those scooters in the city of Rehoboth Beach, much like the bicycle services that exist around the world, where you can. The problem with e-scooters is you drop them anywhere and they become scooter trash.
Like Washington's doing.
Well,
They're just on the sidewalk because they have a GPS locator
pick 'em
system.
up.
The independent contractor with the van comes, or the trailer comes around, picks them up, charges them, puts them back where they started. It's a lot of things going on. My concern primarily is injuries to people that don't know how to ride them. So a business may never approach the city and want to offer the service here. Just like a business may never approach the city for a city bike service. But
You're just making us aware
I'm
of
just
this.
making you guys aware
So
of it
if
because
somebody did come asking for a license, would that issue be brought to this committee to say, what do you think? Because I agree with you.
in theory, there's a
it should.
pathway,
Yeah.
but as we've learned in the era of email, it could come from almost any direction. But in theory, it would end up at the city manager because it'd have to be licensed. So it would end up in this building. And then where would they get the license? They'd have to make a proposal. I'm sure it would come to the Board of Commissioners. It wouldn't be a simple process. But Ocean City has already determined they're not coming to Ocean City, Maryland.
Well, these are the share ride things, or share bikes.
These
like
are
where-
the electric scooters that are like a Razor or other brands where you stand on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I'll send you some pictures. I had a printer issue.
But I think,
but
I think, David, backing up just a little bit, I think we do want to promote electric vehicles to keep the noise down, okay? And I think to look at what kinds of vehicles and equipment could be electric versus gas. And that could be, that's like lawn equipment, you know, the landscapers and all that. But, or like the little scooters, the cute little scooters that get rented now in town, they are super noisy. They, you know, they're like little motorcycles. Now, if those were electric, and also with bike, so I think what we could do is recommend, like any existing businesses, that would say within 5 years, as they turn over their equipment, they get rid of gas-powered equipment and move to electric-powered, okay? Because to keep the noise down and for environmental reasons. We could ask that. I think even with the current bike rentals, we could ask those folks, their equipment would be far safer if they rented bright green bikes. Like if all the bikes, their bike stock, were bright colors that can be visible. And we could, and so you can't say do it right away, but as they turn over within 5 years, they move to brighter colored equipment.
let's put that on the list of future things because
Well,
I'm
and
making a note here. We're running out of time.
But I think it's good you brought this up.
Electric vehicles in many waterfront communities have taken the form of golf carts and urban electric vehicles. E-bikes, I don't think have caught on here yet. I'm not seeing it.
How do you feel about e-bikes? I know people have them.
I have multiple issues with the country of origin of many of these products and human rights violations and the content. I mean, I have issues with the content of a solar panel. Because when the solar panel dies, where's that? So the whole E thing is preferable to the gas-powered, particularly the two-stroke ones that have everything bad about them from one end to the other, except that they take a car off the road and they're easier to park. E-bikes, we know the state of Delaware says up to 750 watts, up to 25 miles an hour. Well, that to me is way better than a scooter, an internal combustion engine scooter, way better. Plus, I can ride it on all the bike paths and all the bike trails and all the bike lanes.
You can't do that with a scooter.
Well, I see these ICE scooters struggling on Route 1 in the bus and bicycle lane, because they can't, that's not a 25-mile-an-hour world out there anymore.
Right.
And at least we can get the bicycles onto the sidewalk out there, which is safe for as long as people, there's a lot of...
Watch the driveways.
Well, all the cross traffic just takes people out. So downstream or across the Delaware Bay, if I go to Cape May, there's golf cart parking. You can license the golf cart.
And some of those might have gasoline motors.
Some of them might.
A friend took me around the villages in Florida. He got the gas to make sure it was going to run.
I think that electric is preferable to gas.
I think so too.
Generally speaking, there is no perfect solution. The perfect solution is us and our legs and our hands. That's the perfect solution. Now our carbon footprint is 0, less whatever it took to make the thing we're on. Or it's truly 0 if we're walking. I walked to elementary school. I rode my bicycle to elementary school when I got old enough. That's not the world we live in anymore. It's a different deal. So those things I'd like to discuss in the future. I also had someone recommend
The three things.
adopt a street.
Excuse me, the new business ones that you mean?
Yeah, I think electric vehicles, that means
Yeah.
e-bikes,
Okay.
Well,
urban electric vehicles, golf carts, et cetera.
put it in noise, keep noise and electric vehicles. They
It,
go
it ties
together.
into the noise thing, because the typical pickup truck with dual exhaust is rather annoying also.
What's the
Well, you-
adopt a street?
Adopt a street is where a business selects a street to help maintain. I haven't seen a need for it here, because I really don't see the trash and litter and things that are out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it doesn't become an issue, but it was something that was just suggested to me, and
You want that on the agenda?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless there's
Yeah.
a overwhelming desire to put it in there. I
We've
think
got
not.
enough to deal with.
I think we have a very clean city.
And because we've got
And,
good
and
services.
the issue, the primary issue that I was just, I never thought to send an email, the newsstands is now in play with the Board of Commissioners, so they can deal with that,
Right, yeah.
which is really bad. There's it's
Did you all talk
123 or
about that at
something.
one point? Was that?
No, I just read that.
No, we didn't,
You
we're,
didn't, okay,
no.
I wondered.
My feeling is if it's on your plate as a
Yeah,
commissioner,
yeah.
Yep, well,
I
yeah,
missed
there are a
it.
lot-
What's
it's
on your
already-
plate?
Reducing the number of newsstands that are out there
Oh, oh,
having regulations that limit the number. It's-
and the location.
Yeah, there's the problem though is it's a free speech issue
But
too,
you
so.
know what, the
yeah,
city
it's
has
not easy
power.
to solve.
You know, as far as moving to electric vehicles, like people want parking permits, you only get a parking permit if you have an electric motorcycle, not a gas powered one. You know, and the city could have regulations.
They could become that, yeah, that would be, there's probably a lot of legacy internal
It-
combustion engine scooters here. My guess is there's a lot of them.
I
'Cause
think,
there's at least 2 shops that have been selling them
Yeah.
for years.
I think the way you do it is phase it in, like over 5 years, we're moving towards.
But that's a whole
you know.
topic by itself, and it's been in the courts.
She's gotta go.
My suggestion would be that this committee also talks to parking advisory, because they're also dealing with scooters.
Scooter, right, that's a-
Parking.
that's a good
Thank
idea.
you, Ann.
That's a good idea, yeah. That's great.
Right.
And let me make a suggestion about timing and budget. You mentioned the crosswalks on, we took a vote on that, the crosswalks on
Yes.
King Charles and all that. And then you also mentioned the homework of this bicycle plan and ultimately presenting that to the commissioner saying, here's the loop we recommend. To the extent that that would involve expenditures as well, I don't know how quickly any of this can be put together or if you want to do it piecemeal, but the budget process is nearly upon us.
The
And-
bike loop becomes this
Right.
revised, new edition, however often this is done, and then on the city website. Because there are, for example, if you're on the Cape May Lewis Ferry, you can click on different things you want to do. Do I want to go to the breweries?
Yeah. Right.
So we need to have the bike loop on a piece of paper and on the city website, at least for the people that go there, as opposed to use their phones, to have some idea of what's the best way to get around town.
I think she's talking about the budget
Yeah,
cycle.
I'm
So
talking
if this is
about
gonna,
timing.
if this is gonna have a budget implication,
It'd be minor, I would think, Susan, it's just a matter of.
Well, that may
doing
be, so then the big
Yeah.
thing would be the
Still doesn't mean
the
it'll get printed.
crosswalks on- Yeah, and that may be, if that's done every year, then that may not even need to be voted on.
But it hasn't been
Yeah,
done.
yeah, it does get done every year, so
Okay,
it's
well
just a
then-
matter of.
We had a
updating it.
much more elaborate one than this.
So that may not be an
City
immediate thing,
stop
but the
thing.
crosswalks are definitely have budget implications. So I was gonna suggest that you present this at a meeting so that we can, begin to put it in the plan and get costs for it and everything.
You
And
mean
maybe,
this?
well, no, I'm talking about the crosswalks on King Charles.
That
And
wouldn't be
anything
much.
else you might want to update them on, that it would be good to have an update of all the sorts of things that are being talked about, but especially the near term. And we do want the crosswalks for next season.
You're talking
Yes.
about your meeting.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Go to a
for
commissioners meeting and report.
workshop or regular meeting, yeah, so that we can get it into the budget discussion.
So I'm gonna email everyone this book. We're gonna look at it. We can exchange information electronically on our thoughts on it.
David,
Do not-
could you all,
Do not respond to everybody.
No, we're not a
because
reply
that is
all.
considered a meeting.
Yes, no
So-
reply all.
Hmm.
If you have something you want to share with me,
Yes.
then you can share it with me as an individual member of the committee. But it's
Instead
not,
of what?
don't reply all.
Oh,
When I send you this link, say I got it to me.
okay,
Reply as opposed to reply all.
okay.
well, David, could you please pull together the notes of what we did last year about what we wanted for the bike loop?
Yes,
So you do that, and then we can compare it to that
we're gonna
manual.
compare it, we're gonna
And then
compare
we're
it to
done.
That's a
this.
good idea.
Yeah.
We're gonna
like-
compare it to what we recommended,
not redoing
we use the highlighter, and see where we wanna say, okay, here's your bike loop.
And you can find the minutes on the portal
Yes,
from those meetings.
they're here and they're all in the portal. Does everybody have the link to the portal? I'll send you the link to the portal also. You can watch every meeting, live streaming or on demand, and you can read all the minutes, all the agendas, everything is on the portal. If you get bored, you can watch it a lot. There's nothing on TV that you want to watch.
If you miss a meeting, you can go back and bring up the last meeting.
Right. For Dan could be watching us from New Zealand for all we know.
Live stream.
Right, so,
You probably want to do that.
no.
You can't chime in on live stream, see what's happening.
Okay. We voted on the crosswalks.
Mhm.
Do we need to ponder the circle and the lighthouse and the walls?
Keep that for
Okay.
next
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna
meeting.
put that at the top of the list for next time.
Are you okay with surf? You
I
didn't
think-
take
I
a
think-
vote on
I
that.
think
You
surf-
didn't take a vote. Did you
Surf,
need-
I think we're all in consensus, we could probably vote on surf as a
Yeah.
recommendation.
Would you like that to
Yeah.
vote on it? So
See,
you got
that, and to me, that plus the crosswalks is the things that should come.
And let's vote on, we've discussed Surf Avenue, we have a recommendation. Move the parking, move the drop-off, recenter the striping, create bike lanes.
Can you make motions? Or do you need someone on the committee to make a motion?
Someone on the committee has to make a
Okay,
motion.
I'll make a motion.
And creating the bike lanes is a painted stripe
Yes.
thing? Okay, on both sides.
That's what I would like,
Okay,
yes.
I agree. On the non-ocean side, how will that,
The parking
Word.
there.
I think that's probably what I would do, is end up talking to Kevin Williams and just asking him his thoughts.
because there's a,
How much there is to work with
there's a
there.
lot of gravel along that
Yeah.
side that would make a good space for a bike lane.
Long-term, that's what should
Okay.
happen.
Right, yeah.
I'm gonna just make it out here, paved gravel.
Okay. Right.
Paved gravel on west side.
Right, okay,
Well, we'll put that in our recommendation.
right, okay.
Who's making the motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that on Surf Avenue, we remove the parking on the east side from Oak and Park Avenues to Henlopen Avenue stop sign. That as far as drop off, we encourage people to drop off in the Deauville lot, not along the street. We recommend relocating the center line to create bike lanes on both sides of the street. We also recommend creating more bike racks along the east side in the grass with bicyclists parking their bikes facing east. And we recommend that the west side shoulder, where the gravel is, be paved. Okay, that's the motion.
Second.
Second.
Mark seconds, okay.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Then how are you gonna communicate these recommendations? You gonna write?
I'm
them
gonna
up?
send an email to the mayor of the city of Rehoboth Beach
Okay,
and copy Ann.
okay.
That was the pathway that was designated to me, so if we're gonna go there,
Well, David,
And
do you
then-
feel okay going to commissioners
Yeah, I think
meeting
it'd be
and
great to
reporting in
present it.
person? Then you're talking to all the commissioners.
I don't mind that at all. It's just schedule permitting.
Yeah.
I think it,
Schedule
Because what
permitting.
I could do is if we can't do it the December regular meeting, I'm trying to remember now, I don't think committees are on workshops, right? No, just at the regular meeting, the committee reports. I could speak for, I could say, well, this is what the committee's been working on, and this is what they're gonna be presenting next month, and then you could come to the January workshop and present it if you're available.
I'm not on a mountain somewhere.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Oh,
Or somebody else from the committee could come and present it that day.
that way more people hear about it.
Right.
I know that in the typical agenda for the commissioners' meetings, there is a slot for each committee.
That's at the
Person.
regular meeting, so the
Right.
December 20th, yes.
So generally what happens there for the regular meeting, since there is a slot for all the committees, is if you have a report to submit to them, what you've been working on, that will be embedded in the agenda. And if you also have someone that can attend the meeting, the mayor will ask for that person to speak.
Friday, December 20th, 3 o'clock.
Oh, Fridays are good.
Okay?
We like Fridays and Mondays.
There you go.
Well, that's when they are. You're in luck.
Hey.
That's when they all are. The workshops are on
No
Mondays.
problem.
So, okay, yeah, but if you want to, if you can do Friday, December 20th, that'd be ideal.
No problem.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
time is it, Ann, on Friday the 20th?
3 p.m.
Oh, it's right before
And-
happy hour.
And the committee stuff is usually early, is, not usually, but is early in the agenda before all the business stuff. So you're bound to be on before 4 o'clock.
You might be able to show up at, could you
That's a
show
good
up at
thing.
3:30?
No, might miss it.
Three.
It's advisable if you're on the agenda to be there at the start of the
Right,
meeting.
absolutely.
Okay,
Have
all
you-
right.
Are you talking about future agendas now?
Yes, that's where we would like to be.
Because, well, no, I'm talking about future agendas for this. We talking about that, Nick? Future agenda items for this?
Right, so I think we're gonna have to revisit the circle,
Mhm.
and maybe that could have a little bit of study on the behalf of all of us. Because there are a lot of pieces to that puzzle there. The lighthouse is kind of the linchpin, but
Well, and you wanted about, or have on the agenda about electric vehicles, noise on the street, those items you wanted to pursue.
right. And we can probably get a little bit of input from the Green Committee, or whatever they're called, the Environmental Committee, the Green Team, what's the
Environment Committee,
Environmental Committee?
they're meeting this Friday.
I think they're moving toward electric vehicles too.
I don't believe that's on their agenda.
Yeah, that's a hard one, because that really becomes legislating what
Yeah.
the average American considers an automobile to be their right. It's not a privilege, it's a right. And you start telling me what I gotta drive, you got a problem. So I would say getting into that area, it would be pretty far down the road.
Well,
But making recommendations, particularly for when you get here. I've been coming here every summer since 1993. And I want to park the car, lock it, and leave it alone until I leave town. I want to walk or ride my bicycle everywhere we go.
That's right.
And you can do
So
that.
Yeah.
But I think
I don't
that's-
know where I fit in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
people's attitude here, but it's, most of these streets are parking lots
Mhm.
down here.
Yeah.
I just want to park the car and not have to touch it again. So e-vehicles, yes, we need to talk about that, and that can be e-bikes, e-scooters, if they're real sit-on riding scooters, as opposed to these ones you stand on. Urban electric vehicles, like the ones the hotels use to shuttle people to and from the beach. Those make sense if you gotta move around. Electric golf carts make sense if you have to move around.
And I think the shuttle they were talking about, they were gonna get an electric shuttle.
No, I don't think so.
No, that's gonna be a polluter more than likely.
Yeah, she said not right away.
Oh, I thought that's what they were shooting for.
It's,
Be ideal.
yeah, to move that many people with utility, you still gotta use an engine, still gotta use a motor. It's not,
Okay, but we've got, idea, thinking
And
ahead.
if you're looking at future, do you want to include some of the stuff from the Comprehensive Development Plan survey?
I knew there was something I forgot, thank you.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
about.
the CDP has some good data
There
that
was,
we should look
yeah,
at.
there were a number. I made a list of the questions. I actually made a list of some of the stats here. I don't have to talk about it today. But there's probably 10 questions in that survey that had answers that were related to pedestrian and bikes and sidewalks and everything. So it'd be useful information.
Is that on the,
It's on the website, but the community survey is 198 pages. Yeah.
We don't want all that. We
So
want the
it's a
edited
matter,
version.
Yeah.
so what I had done, I looked at all the questions that were related to pedestrians. I was like, it's about 10 or 12 of the questions, and I was gonna pull some of the data out of those questions and put it together.
How about we put that on our agenda for next
Yeah.
time? Susan
Yes,
could
that's
report.
what,
Yeah, I'll do- I'll do
exactly
that.
what we wanna do.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
So when would and so I guess we have to set the date for the next meeting, sometime in January.
What did you call that?
The comprehensive CDP survey.
Oh, the CDP.
CDP, yeah, CDP survey. So we'll talk about the circle, we'll talk about electric vehicles, we'll talk about the bike loop, we'll talk about the CDP. We'll hopefully have more data on the merge
Now, we
signage.
didn't pick up the state roads crosswalks this time.
We forgot, let's put that on there.
And then review
We need
merge
two.
proposal. Is there a proposal?
Well, there is, and they have, did you all finalize that, when you went around that day, did they finalize the placement for where some of these signs were gonna go?
Yes, the primary function was where the 4x4 post goes in the ground.
Yeah, okay.
So what goes on the sign, they have a plan. So it was placement that we were working on, and then making them all consistent is their goal. Different colors for different things, but again, the pedestrian, the cyclist, how to get to the art league, some of the things that create confusion for people.
Yeah.
And map it all out and make it comprehensive. Right now, it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
There's signs everywhere.
But is the plan there now, I mean, say we finalize this bike plan in a few months, does that plan that's already committed to meet this plan, I mean,
Incorporate the bike plan, no.
is it all incorporated? Is it all consistent, or are there
I
still?
would like to think that we get involved at the level of sign placement once we
Yeah.
finalize the bike loop
Okay.
recommendation, which I know the bike loop is important to the mayor, and I'd like to get that accomplished
Yeah.
sooner than
But
later.
it is not,
Yeah.
as last I knew, it is not part of merge, because merge was dealing with bigger issues, and like, as far as pedestrian and bike stuff, that was it. They were
That's-
not going to touch
Well,
that.
there
That's
is-
in group 2.
Yeah, but they're supposed to all be happening.
It's definitely part of it. This is
Yeah.
what I have to get from Evan in an
That's-
email to you guys.
And that's my
So you
issue.
can take a
with
look
it, is
at
All
it.
this stuff can be ready at the same time.
So group 2 is pedestrian signage, kiosk, bike and trail signage. And our bike loop, our bike beltway is part of all that.
Okay.
So it's part of group
Stage
2.
Group 2, if they approve that, if they approve it and buy that, 'cause weren't they going to propose that, different options of what the city could do with different price tags?
I believe that there's a
And so it's
dollar
gonna be-
figure attached to each level of
Yeah,
performance.
yeah, and so it's up what the commissioners are gonna put their money into,
Right, but.
or have money for.
The budget was preliminarily approved to do all of them.
Oh,
Oh, how much, all much? Okay.
$278,000.
So that includes all 4 levels?
That concludes all 4 levels,
Okay.
yeah. But my concern is whether or not they're all gonna be ready to do, at the same time.
Ah.
Or whether they get done for
And that could take months to implement.
Well, that's
It's a
concerning.
labor, it's labor intensive.
All that.
But my thought from some of the early discussions with merge was if the city didn't buy the merge prepared signs or whatever, the city itself could go along and create its own signs consistent with what the design that merge.
Yeah, and
had
we're
created.
gonna own the
It
design.
looks like that's part of it, because it says here to be provided by city public works.
The exact content, yeah.
Okay, right.
was the
But
merge
in addition
plan,
to
that-
that, we'll have the design.
are they planning to take down all the signs that are up now?
Well,
That's a good question.
Take
Some
down,
of them,
no,
Yeah, they
there's
should.
not
New
gonna
ones
be,
up.
there's not gonna be a time when there's no signs.
no, he means replace, are we just adding to all the hundreds that
Yeah.
are there
The
now?
2,400 or however, no, they're
Yeah,
coming down. These
Are
new
we
ones are
adding,
going.
or?
No,
But this is not speed limit signs and stop signs.
Oh.
This is wayfinding.
This is
Oh,
street.
I see. I didn't know that.
Right,
Okay.
this is wayfinding.
Part of the thing is to
So-
reduce sign clutter.
Yeah, we
So
do
they'll-
need to.
How to find a parking space. For example, this wonderful lot that's right here that's underutilized. Because there's really no,
There's a new sign out there. It says
there's a
public parking.
sign, but you gotta, but there's no left turn lane to go into this lot.
There really isn't.
You have to go around and come back.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the median and the streetscape and the radius of the curbs and all the things
Right.
that.
Right. One more thing we need is the next meeting
Next
date.
meeting, I was just looking at calendar.
Right, so the next meeting date can be in January, it can be in February, it can be in March.
Are we trying to go back to Fridays?
Well, Fridays and Mondays are best for me.
That's good.
They're bad for you?
No,
No,
they're
they're
the
good,
best.
Friday
Oh,
and
they're the
Monday,
best.
so.
Long-term, it'll be every day, but in the transitional period that I'm in right now, Mondays and Fridays.
Do we think we need to meet in January? Do we have things we want to pursue?
Well, if David has it any time on his schedule, I think it would be good just to review what we've been doing here.
So I'm thinking, I'm just looking at where I'm going and when I'm coming back. So in January, the time that works for me would be the 20th or Tuesday, Monday the 20th, I think is a holiday, or Tuesday the 21st would have to be.
I'm not in town
Because otherwise
it'd have to be later in January for me, like Friday the 24th or Monday the 27th?
that's when I'm gonna be on a mountain.
Both those dates?
Yeah, I'm gonna be going this way.
We did 17th?
The 17th, I can be here the 17th if I can arrange coverage. I've got someone on vacation, but hopefully someone else can
Would
cover.
we be able to do the morning, Ann?
No, because you have a special meeting.
Oh, of course,
Budget.
oh,
When's your
yes, yes,
special
yes,
meeting?
yes, budget meets on the same days as the regular meeting.
What time is that?
That'd be 10, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we do it in the afternoon of the 17th?
No, because the afternoon is the
Oh,
governor's
sorry.
meeting.
I'm not here.
So the 17th is closed out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mistake.
What's wrong with the 20th?
The 20th is a holiday, so I don't know if the city,
Yeah,
I'm
City's
not here.
closed.
right,
if there's a holiday, you can't meet.
right.
And the 6th, is that when,
That's also
Commissioners workshop.
taken up all day with regular and budget workshop, right?
okay,
How about the first week in February?
there we go. How about February 3rd? That's
No.
Monday the.
That's when I'm flying
that's
back.
Susan.
No, actually, the workshop's the 10th, not the 3rd, right?
The
Ann?
7th would be good in February, or the 10th.
Okay,
No,
February,
the workshop is on January 6th.
No, I'm talking about February. Is the workshop the 3rd or the 10th? It's the 10th, isn't it?
It's the 10th.
Okay, so we could do February 3rd.
No,
February
he's on
3rd,
an
I
airplane.
won't
you're on
be
the
here.
airplane. Okay,
how
what
about the
about,
7th?
7th is good, 10th is good.
Okay, how about
So
Friday the 7th?
it'd have to be
Let's
the
do the
7th.
7th.
Yeah.
Okay, and,
7th is open.
Wow.
good,
Can we get our usual time at 10:30,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
is,
Okay, February 7th, 10:30.
is that long enough? Like here now, we've gone to 10:35. That's like 2 hours. If we meet at 10:30, I assume we're
I
trying to
think
get out
2
at
hours
10.
is absolutely,
I think that's plenty.
But should we plan 10 to 12 and be done? Or do you think if we come?
Generally, when I set up a committee meeting, I set it up in a 2-hour block.
Okay, but don't you like to go to lunch at noon?
I don't have a lunch.
Oh,
now there's a problem.
They went to the 10:30 for me,
Oh,
because
okay.
I work out
No,
at, usually work out at the Y,
Okay,
and then
okay.
I can come
Okay,
over.
That's fine. I
Let's
just
leave
was
it at
concerned for them.
February 7th at 10:30.
Fine.
Okay.
Okay,
And with the idea it could go 2 hours.
all right, we got no citizen comment unless Mallory wants to say something.
No, I was just hoping I could interview somebody.
Okay, all right. So we now have a motion to adjourn.
I have a citizen comment.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I am working on, at this point in time, and it looks like it's gonna be for December 20th? No. Hold on. Yes, December 20th, from 10 to 12 in the morning. There will be a FOIA
Oh,
and ethics
training?
training.
Great. That's great. I was
That's
gonna
very
ask
worthwhile,
that.
actually.
That's for all commissions,
That's great.
boards, and committees.
And that's December 20th, 10 a.m. to 12 noon for FOIA.
10 a.m. to 12.
And Glenn's doing that again?
Glenn and Maxwell.
Great. Oh, that's wonderful.
very
Okay,
worthwhile.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about that.
It's advised that if you can, get all the committee members to attend.
Yes. I highly recommend it. It was worthwhile.
Yeah.
This is when, December what?
December the
December
20th.
20th.
20th, which is a
10
Friday,
a.m.
same day as the
But
Friday.
Friday
then,
at
yeah,
10.
yeah, you have a
It's
meeting
here.
that day.
Well,
Yes.
it's not till
It's in
3,
this
but
room.
yeah, so it'll be
It'll be
a full
standing
day
room only.
now. Have fun.
Isn't that what it usually turns out?
Well,
to be?
we'll
It'll be
so
worth
it's-
it.
so
It'll be
it's-
live, so you can
it's
log
actually
on to
good
get it.
That happens, and then they can.
You just set
I
aside
think do we take roll when we're at that meeting?
No.
No?
Oh, this is great, thank you.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. Oh, actually,
This is
well,
just
except that
exactly
my
what I
address
needed.
is not right on here, but that's okay.
Thank you, Ann.
Yes, thanks.
Here's my address down here.
So my address is actually 3433.
3433.
So
That's
if
the
you could give me-
Tuesday-
If you could give me all your corrections, then I will make the changes.
Yeah, that's it. It's a 3. Everything else is good.
3433.
Right.
Mine
Four.
looks fine.
Actually, you can just put the local one down here.
Tory Turn sounds revolutionary.
Yeah, it was, that was our old house, we're actually not there anymore, but, yeah, it was, in that area.
What
Very
was
close
your
to Valley Forge
correction?
Park.
You were,
3433. Not 1433, 3433.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Three,
in my
four,
pursuit of
three.
quiet, I live on a street that's only 1 block long. It's really nice. It's even better
So
than a
you couldn't go
cul-de-sac.
wrong.
It's even better than a cul-de-sac. Yeah, well, if they closed National Airport, I'd be all good.
Really? I don't think that'll happen.
Live near
No.
Dulles. Live near
No,
Dulles.
no. Not happening.
When they get solar airplanes, they're working on them.
Yeah, the toxicity in those panels is really bad.
Oh, okay, you gotta work on that.
It's really, it's a conundrum because you've got the wind, and the wind is free and the sun is free, but the pieces of the puzzle are not always good. Have you seen the height of the new turbines?
Mhm.
They're incredible.
Yeah, why?
Did you adjourn?
No, well, let's
Oh, that's
adjourn.
it.
We're adjourning. Who's gonna
Yeah.
motion to adjourn?
I
We
make a,
did. Aye.
I second it.
Okay.
Get it? We're good.
Is this online?
It should be.